call the regular council meeting of October 31st, 2016 to order. And I'd like to welcome all the people at home who are viewing this tonight, live streaming through their computers. It's the first regular council meeting that has done live streaming. And so we're hoping that it's going to be very, very popular. It will allow the whole public to be able to see what takes place at a council meeting. It'll also be shown on Cogeco TV as well, still, for those who don't have a streaming device on their computer. And as usual, we're going to start with a short reflection. And it's an opportunity for us to think of something that's very important to us. And I know that as we get close to November 11th, I never have difficulty finding something important for myself to reflect on. And I just ask everyone here to join us. Thank you. And I'll begin by asking Deputy Mayor Henderson if there's any additions to the agenda.
Yes, Your Worship. The addition is with Mr. Keeler regarding the Darcy Street crossing, and I request that this be added to the agenda. Okay. A motion.
Seconder, Councillor Sherwin. All in favor? Carried. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council tonight? Seeing none, we can proceed.
Your Worship, the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Action recommended the council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October the 11th, 2016.
Okay, seconder, Councillor McCarthy. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have a presentation by Peter Delanty and Nicole Beattie, Coburg 2017 Canada 150th Anniversary Committee members, to update Council on the activities and events planned for the upcoming 150th Anniversary of Canada celebrations in the town of Coburg.
Okay, welcome Nicole and Peter. Nicole, Peter did promise me he'd keep it to 25 or 30 minutes.
Guaranteed, Mayor.
Why I'm starting first, I do not know why then.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy Halloween. And we actually are asking councillors, would you like a trick or a treat this evening? Okay, I'll choose for you.
Okay.
We're going to give you a treat.
May I come forward?
So Laura is just going to hand out our commemorative T-shirts. So I'm Nicole Beattie. I have the pleasure of co-chairing Coburg's Canada 150 celebrations with my good friend and community mentor, Peter Delanty. And we're just going to speak to you a little bit about what Coburg has in mind for celebrating our epic Confederation celebration next year. So what is Coburg 2017? Essentially, it's our community's celebration and annual festival in taking part in the national parade of celebrating our great country's 150th birthday. As we all know, 2017 will commemorate the Confederation of Canada. Coburg's going to play a vital role in creating national pride on behalf of our citizens, our community, visitors, tourists, both near and far. And as I mentioned, we're really designing 2017 to almost be a 365-day cavalcade of festivals, whether they're daily events, signature events, or year-round awareness initiatives. Essentially, it's a whole year dedicated to celebrating Coburg and Canada. So the Coburg 2017 logo on the right is inspired by the National Confederate logo, which was designed by a high school student in Toronto. And essentially, the one on the left, the Canada 150 logo, tells a good story. It's created of celebratory gems or diamonds. The first four close to the stem actually represent the 4 provinces that were a part of Confederation back in the day. And Peter has a fabulous pop quiz question of, can anyone name what 4 provinces shaped our nation? Okay. Okay, that wasn't a trick. It was a skill testing question. But the treat is I'll provide you with the answers. So it's Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Upper Canada, Ontario, and Lower Canada, Quebec. I just want to read you something from the Canada 150 website, as I think it articulates the spirit of Canada 150 and then what we've tried to inspire with the Coburg 2017 logo. The Canada 150 logo will become sorry, I'm trying to be smart, but I'm losing my sight. The Canada 150 logo will become an evocative symbol and an enduring reminder of one of Canada's proudest moments. The maple leaf motif is recognized at home and abroad as distinctively Canadian, and it fosters feelings of pride, unity, and celebration. This unique and colorful design is simple enough to be drawn by children and versatile enough to appear in color variations. The possibilities are endless, and the use of the symbol are unlimited as the spirit and imagination of the Canadian public. And by tying in the Victoria Hall symbol and the sailboat, we are capturing the imagination that is unique and proudly Coburg. So our theme that we're embracing is strong, proud, and free, celebrating in Coburg. Our events are encouraged to use the logo and list their events on Coburg's website. Peter will go into more details about that and our calendar of events. But strong, proud, and free, celebrating in Coburg. And again, really trying to tie this into a tourism destination product in our 2017 external campaign, and then local celebrations for Coburg residents. The Canada 150 committee is just more than Peter and I. In fact, we have a few here with us this evening. If I can ask you all to wave your hand. And a huge thank you to Laura Scott, who has been our town representative in facilitating this really, really amazing group of community leaders. We're probably over 20 individuals at the leadership level. Councillor Deborah McCarthy is part of the team, and as a young Coburgian looking to play an active role in the community, I'm blessed to be surrounded by such time and talent, and so thank you to everyone for the volunteer hours to date. We've actually been meeting as an approved council of the town of Coburg since February. We meet monthly to go over our objectives, our budget, community ambassadorships, the community programming. We've facilitated grants, and we're actually quite broken down into several portfolios. So who are we? Our leadership team is comprised of a subcommittee with co-chairs in all these pillars. We've organized ourselves by education and community awareness, arts and culture, heritage and history, volunteers and community engagement, marketing, finance, sports and sports history, and Canada Week. The role of the subcommittees and the prospective chair is essentially to champion their respective portfolios within the community. They are working to engage businesses, nonprofits, and active citizens. They're serving as our leaders, our communicators, ambassadors to the organizers, and the gatherers of information. Essentially, they are promoting our theme of Come Celebrate Canada 150 here in Coburg. And as a group, we are mobilizing Coburg Pride, which you'll see celebrated throughout 2017. And I'm sure as the elected leaders of our fabulous community, you will all be playing an integral leadership role in these activities and events as well. So I'm going to handball it over to my fabulous partner, Peter Delanty.
Thanks very much, Nicole, and Mayor Brockenier and the councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening regarding this really a fantastic year we're going to have next year. As Nicole mentioned, we've been meeting since February and planning and putting together a program that'll be, I'm sure, will be the envy of every municipality in Ontario. The year's going to start off with the Men's Tankard and the Ontario Scottish Tournament of Hearts on January the 30th up till February the 5th. This will be taking place in our Coburg Community Centre. For those who don't follow curling, this is going to be a tournament which will determine who will represent Ontario at the National Championships, which will take place later on in the year. The curling will be fantastic. There will be some really excellent teams, and it'll be well worth watching. So that'll take place at the end of January 30th. And then as we get to near the end of February, we'll have the 55-plus Winter Seniors Games. And as I look around this council, all of you councillors, except maybe one, could be competitors in this, and you just haven't told anyone yet. It's going to be really exciting. There are going to be over 1,000 people coming to Coburg for those 2 days. They're going to all have to rent a hotel or stay at a B&B. They're going to have breakfast. They're going to have dinner, lunch. They might even take some time to do some shopping and spare time. It'll be a real economic shot in the arm. As I should mention, so will the tankard last the whole week. And then as we progress down, probably one of the biggest events we'll have, because it'll be a national event, is the Rbc Cup. And the Rbc Cup will be determining who are the champions of the Junior A Hockey League, hockey division, right across Canada. So there'll be teams from, one team will represent the West, one team will represent the Maritimes and Quebec, there will be an Ontario team, and the fourth team will be the host city's team, which of course is our own Coburg Cougars. And the Coburg Cougars are a fantastic team this year. They've only lost 2 games. They want to be able to go to the games, the Rbc Cup, and they have really a legitimate chance of winning that. And that's going to be going on from May the 13th to the 21st. There will be people here from as far west as British Columbia and as far east as Newfoundland coming in here, staying for the week, and again, talking about an economic boost to our economy. And it's going to be televised nationally, so it's a chance for us to show off our town, what a fabulous place it is to live in, to play in, and to work in. So just 3 fantastic events. Coming up to probably the highlight of the year for most of us who live in Coburg is the Canada Day, July 1st, that special day. This year we're extending the Canada Day to a Canada Week. On July the 1st we'll have a traditional parade. We'll have speeches and that from the Victoria Park, and we'll have the Waterfront Festival going on. And that's a highlight in itself, and we'll have fireworks that night, and Lara has told me that they'll be bigger and better than ever. But during that week, we'll be having other activities going on. One of them we're going to have them leave one of the tents up at the Rotary Waterfront Park. Have the Rotary Club leave one of the big tents up. It might be over the Frink. Now that would be kind of interesting. Anyways, it's going to be there, and we're going to have a Confederation tea. We're asking people to come in costume. There'll be traditional music from the 19th century, Canadian music. And so that'll be a big event. We're going to have a 150 Day. What is 150 Day? Well, we're hoping that the theater might say, on this special day, during this special week, you can get to a movie for $1.50. And we might have some merchants downtown saying, on that special week, a special day, $1.50 day, we'll have items in our store that are for $1.50. It's going to be a kind of a fun event. They might even be able to sell a suit in one of the men's clothing stores for not $1.50, maybe $150. Who knows? I'll see if the mayor can do something about that. So that'll be one of the events. And we're hoping to have maybe set a world record in an event. And we have our own Kevin Fast, who certainly can help us in that way. At the end of the July the 8th, we'll have a second gigantic fireworks to sort of end that special week. And we're hoping this works, but it doesn't seem to be going up. Here might. Oh. Well, thanks very much. The events in Coburg, there'll be the annual events that we have, like the Coburg Sandcastle Festival and the Highland Games and so forth. But we'll try and give each one a 150-year slant to it. For instance, the Coburg Sandcastle Festival, we're going to ask them to perhaps put in the Coburg 150 logo. the Canada logo, maybe a sandcastle rendition of Sir John A. Macdonald, James Coburn. So these will be, we'll try and have each one of these catering towards the 150th anniversary of Canada. Of course, the big signature celebration will be the opening of Victoria Square in August, which will be right behind us, right behind the fire hall, and it will complete a rather mundane and ordinary parking zone back there, which is used for the farmers market on Saturday, and turn it into a square, a park-like setting. And won't it be fantastic to think that from King Street down, we have Victoria Hall, we have our Heritage Fire Hall, we'll have Victoria Square, a waterfront park, and it'll go right into our own marina and into the lake. It'll be a real compliment to this town and make it even better a place to live in. Local groups will be involved. In fact, we've been talking to many of them, asking to get involved. And give you an example, the Dragon Boat Club and Canoe Club, they're going to be bringing in canoes from the museum in Peterborough, the Canoe Museum, and the canoes that cover the 19th century and a description of what those canoes would be used for. And I think it'll be fascinating, very interesting. We'll have films that'll be shown dealing with Canada they'll be brought in from Ottawa, dealing with events happening in Canada during the last 150 years, and they'll be shown in the loft. The Historical Society, of course, will be having something right here in the town hall, and I think I can hardly wait to see it. It's going to be a history of the Canadian flag from 1867, when we were under British rule, right up until today when we have our own Canadian flag. These are some of the events that are going to go on. There are others, and if you just give me a minute. St. Andrew's Church, I should mention this, St. Andrew's Church is going to have a strawberry social, and it's going to be in June, and they will be dressed in period costume, and they'll have music from the early 19th century. Next, please. The ACO Coburg branch, that's the Architectural Society, going to do something very interesting, I think, and I think it's probably long overdue in Coburg. We have two major heritage centers in our town designated, and they are going to be making signs, and which will be put on all the lawns, owners permitting, which will on any homes that are 150 years or of age or older. In it, on those signs, they'll tell us who the original owners were, what their occupation was, and something about the home itself. And if we have historical walks or bike tours through the Coburg, won't it be something that people can stop and see this and realize what a great heritage town this town is? There's going to be, there's been a lot of research done, led by Ross Quigley, matter of fact, on the history of sports in Coburg. And over 27 sports are being researched and written on. Teams like the rather famous Coburg Galloping Ghosts from the 40s and 50s, which won national championships in football. The Olympians that came from Coburg and competed at the Olympics will be also designated. There'll be Legion Ball, and all the different sports that Coburg has excelled in over the years and participated in will be written up, and these will be available at the Coburg Community Center. The Coburg Public Library is going to have a competition, and this will begin interesting to all you councillors, of course, and I'm sure you'll lead in this to encourage others to. They're going to have a 150-day period they're going to designate, and during that 150 years, they're going to have a list, and they'll be available at Coburg Council or at Coburg Library, of all the Canadian books, their authors and books on Canada. And the challenge will be, how many books can you read in that 150-day period? Now, the mayor told me quietly just before that he's aiming for 25 books. I thought that was a pretty lofty ambition. But I'm sure if he sets that out, the rest of council will certainly join in. But it will be fun. It'll be kind of an interesting way and a nice way to sort of learn more about Canada. The Victoria Operatic Society, for this year, I was putting on a play. It's Anne of Green Gables, right here in the concert hall. Of course, this is a play all about Canada, all about the characters that made Canada such a great place to live in. And they're also going to have another concert, which is going to be put on by the Northumberland Players, and it's called Waiting for the Parade. John Murrell, who is a Canadian composer and author, wrote the play, and the Northumberland Players will be putting that on this year too. So you can see there are a lot of things going on and a lot of things happening. Anyways, it's not what next, because the next one is arts and culture, but I think we'll go back a couple. Yeah, thanks. To give you a broad sort of feeling of the scope of what this is all about, and you can see it is fantastic, and it's no wonder our committee is so excited about it. In the arts and culture, for instance, the Northumberland Orchestra and Choir will be putting on a concert in May, which is totally dedicated to Canadian composers and music. It'll be put on the Trinity United Church, and it's going to be a fantastic concert. It'll be dealing with folk music, more classical music, but all with Canadian authors, Canadian themes. The concert band of Coburg will be putting on a concert, a special concert with Canadian music. So these are some of the things that we'll be doing in arts and cultural area. So what's next? Well, you can watch for more information. Those who are watching tonight, you can get on Coburg 2017. You can get on the email list. And you can see the pageantry starting towards town with the town banners. And I think we have one over here. These banners are going to start going up around the middle of November. We're going to have them on both entrances into the town, Burnham Street, Division Street. They'll be on the lights. And it'll be coming down William Street and Elgin Street. And then, of course, come down through King Street and make its way down to the park. A reminder to everyone that next year is a special year. If you want to become part of the celebration, you can do that too. You can do that by going into Coburg 2017 and entering your event, if you have one coming up, which has a traditional 150-year theme to it. You can plant red and white flowers. Now, I know Home Hardware, I don't know whether they still have any or not. We're selling white and red tulips. And all you have to do is get 150 of them, plant them in the front of your home in a nice pattern, and then you have to say to the squirrels, please leave these alone for next year. So you get on the Coburg 2017 events calendar, and you can do that through the internet. So I guess what we're saying is we hope next year that everyone in Coburg will come celebrate, come enjoy what is going to be a fantastic year in Coburg, and it'll be a celebration we can all enjoy and be very, very proud of. Thanks very much, Councillor and Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Peter and Nicole. I certainly want to say that I very much appreciate, Peter and Nicole, that you've taken on a real leadership role on for this very important year that's coming up for Coburg. Very, very impressive list of events that we're going to see in Coburg. And I agree with you, Peter. We're going to be the envy of many, many communities, and you too can take a lot of credit for that. So it's going to be an exciting year. It'll be non-stop events throughout the whole year. So I'm greatly looking forward to it, and I'm now going to open up to members of council if they have any further questions for Peter or Nicole.
Oh, by the way, before you do, excuse me, Mayor, but Nicole is anxious that we do see here the logo, both the one of Coburg and the Canadian logo.
Very, very good. Any questions? No, it's going to be exciting. So what we'll do now, Councillor Sherwin.
Not a question as much as a comment to Peter. This town is going to be red and white because we sold out 2 full skids of those tulip bulbs.
Wow. Wow. You mean you don't have any more left?
As of today, there's 2 boxes left on the shelf.
Okay, councillors, get up there in a hurry, okay? I was kind of disappointed, by the way, councillors. I thought every one of you would be throwing those shirts on just to show, Deborah, very good. And I thought everyone else would have one on. My heavens. I gave up mine so you would be able to put yours on, Councillor Darling, but I guess that's the way it goes.
It won't fit over my robe and chain of office. But
I
I'll have
won't
it
even
on.
comment on that. Thank you. Thanks very much, Council, and thanks very much, Mayor Brockeneer.
Okay, so we're now going to have a short recess. I do believe that Peter and Nicole want to do a little bit of a press release photo op, so we'll just take that short recess and we'll come back and we'll have a presentation from Carol McCann on Downtown Coalition.
Where's the sensor? Oh, okay. No, sometimes, yeah, you're just not pointing. Yeah, no, I'm not too worried. Thanks.
Those aren't yours, right?
No, those might be Peter's. Just make sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're back to the agenda.
Your Worship, at this time we have a presentation by Carol McCann, the Chair of Downtown Coalition Advisory Committee, to update Council on the committee's work over the past year.
Well, welcome, Carol.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. I know that there was a commitment made by the Downtown Coalition. There would be an update for Council, so we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mayor Brockenier and councillors. So, as the Mayor has said, I'd like to give an update of the past year or so's activities of the Downtown Coalition Advisory Committee. This is a relatively new advisory group. It was formed in 2015 to facilitate, assist, and coordinate the implementation of the Vitalization Action Plan that was approved by Council in November of 2013. Here you can see the main purpose of the committee: to oversee and ensure the timely execution of that Vitalization Action Plan, and to focus the efforts in the coordination of the stakeholders that are working to promote and vitalize the downtown. These are the members of the advisory committee. It's fairly large. They're made up mainly of representatives of stakeholder organizations that are involved in vitalization in one way or another. Specifically, we have representatives from other relevant advisory committees, including Economic Development, Parks and Recreation, and Planning and Sustainability, as well as a rep from the Northumberland Central Chamber of Commerce and the DBIA. The Mayor sits on this advisory committee, as do staff from Planning, Economic Development, and as well the CAO. There's been some turnover in membership over the past year and a half since it was formed. Council recently approved additional representation from the Planning Committee, Planning and Sustainability Committee actually, now in the person of Warren McCarthy. And both Ken Bagshaw and Suzanne Séguin have come on board in the last 4 months, replacing previous members of the committee. I'd like to start by making a few comments on revitalization as it has unfolded in North America and in Canadian urban centres in particular. Late in 2014, I was considering the issue of vitalization measures, and I came across a study commissioned by the International Downtown Association and carried out by the Canadian Urban Institute. It was called The Value of Investing in Canadian Downtowns. It was a large study, actually done in 2 parts, 2 separate years, and it surveyed urban centres across Canada in terms of how their vitalization efforts were going. Now, some of these centres were fairly large, including Winnipeg and Edmonton. The smallest was Fredericton in New Brunswick at 35,000. So really, they're bigger than Coburg by a bit of a margin. However, I think that the observations made in this work are pertinent to Coburg's vitalization initiative. And you can see some of the observations here. For example, Canadian downtowns are enjoying a period of renaissance. Residential growth is transforming downtowns across Canada, and they're maintaining a strong commercial position. Public investment on a range of scales creates the foundation for future private investment, and that's an important point. We need the public investment in order to encourage the private investment. Partnership and long-term commitment are crucial for revitalization. Institutions, like post-secondary institutions, have brought many inspiring additions to Canadian downtowns. And in particular, measuring the performance of a downtown empowers decision makers to understand the value of the downtown. Now, in particular, this study provided 5 core principles for successful downtowns in the context of vitalization: visibility, strategy, visionary, prosperity, and livability. Each of these can be expanded into various measures of a successful downtown. So I prepared a background paper called Measuring Success in Downtown Coburg Vitalization, a summary of approach and recommendations that has been used as a guide for the Coalition's thinking on vitalization, and one that could also be used for assessing progress. And I'll come back to these principles later on in the presentation. Going back to the last observation of that study that I mentioned previously, measuring the performance of a downtown empowers decision makers to understand its value. I think there are 2 aspects to the measurement of vitalization. One is measuring the progress on vitalization projects expected to have a positive impact on the downtown. These projects would be the ones derived, in our case, from the Vitalization Action Plan. The second aspect to measurement is to measure the indicators of downtown vitality based on these Canadian Urban Institute principles such as prosperity and livability. So this presentation will be divided into two major parts based on these two ways of measuring success. I'll start by showing how the coalition projects were derived from the AP objectives, and then go on to talk about the progress on those projects, and then turn to the indicators of vitality. Council members will perhaps recall the Downtown Vitalization Action Plan shown here. It was approved in November 2013, as I mentioned. The plan was the result of deliberations by an ad hoc task force on vitalization. The action plan included the vision statement as follows. Downtown Coburg is Ontario's foremost cultural and recreational small town destination, forged from a beautifully preserved historic community on the waterfront. As the economic hub of Northumberland County, it will deliver accessible experiences and opportunities generated from local agriculture, environmental consciousness, and active, health-centered living. To refresh your memory, this area is the area designated to be the downtown in the action plan. So it runs roughly from at the west end, Durham Street, to the east at College and Church, roughly, and from James Street south to the waterfront. So it's a bigger area than just King Street and Division Street. The Vitalization Action Plan's recommendations were grouped into 9 strategic elements. This slide and the next one shows those 9 elements down the left-hand side, with a description of the major objectives for each one. So the objectives were mainly 1 or 2 for each of the strategic elements, and then under those objectives were sub-objectives. So for example, the second strategic element, called Establish Cornerstone Business, is made up of 2 objectives. The first is 2.1, shift the commercial categories to promote the vision and the economic strategy. And there were a number of sub-objectives associated with that as well. Target the desired businesses that had been identified in a survey, consider a business certification plan. Thus, each objective in the action plan had several sub-objectives, and in fact, there were 31 sub-objectives altogether. Here's the second set. Again, running to 9 strategic elements altogether with the objectives and sub-objectives associated with those. Some of the sub-objectives were very small. For example, let's have better garbage collection after the town events. Some of them were very large. The proposed venture initiative is one example, or the preparation of the downtown master plan. So the first task of the coalition was to fold the many sub-objectives of the action plan into more tractable projects. This is the list that emerged. The table shows the project names on the second column there, and the relevant action plan objectives are shown on the right-hand side. So you can see that some of the projects had several objectives associated with them, like the first one. Some of them had only one sub-objective, the downtown master plan, associated with it. The project grouping was done bearing in mind the Canadian Urban Institute's principles, as shown in the third column there. So, for example, they could be visionary, strategic, prosperity, or livability associated with it, and we tried to match them up. The priorities in the first column were the ones that were assigned by the group. And so we have priority 1 as the highest and priority 3 as less important, at least in the terms of the immediate future and the working group. Some of the action plan and recommendations had already been carried out before the coalition was formed. And some of them we considered to be just routine town business, like that pickup of the garbage, for example. So we didn't include them in our project list, although we may go back and include them later on if we think they're not being picked up. So here's the list of projects, and how are we doing on those projects now? So now we're talking about that first aspect of measurement. What's the progress of the vitalization projects? Here's a summary of the activities that resulted in the completion of the Downtown Master Plan and the Community Improvement Plan. The Downtown Master Plan was put in motion soon after the coalition was formed because we felt it was a vital component of the process towards vitalization. It was contracted to Dillon Consulting and RCI Consulting in April of 2015 and accepted just barely a year later by Council in 2016. This was a plan, the Downtown Master Plan, that was also coordinated with the Heritage Master Plan, which was happening at the same time. And it's a plan that provides a comprehensive guide to downtown development for the next 20 years. Now, a key addition to the Downtown Master Plan was the Community Improvement Plan, the so-called CIP, which was accepted by Council in March of 2016. $50,000 has already been allocated to the granting and loan mechanisms that are approved in the CIP through Council approval, of course. And in fact, Council is now considering giving more to that effort on a case-by-case basis for this 2016 year. However, we need to determine criteria for the evaluation of these CIP projects in 2017 beyond. So, for example, if we get lots of applications, how are we going to decide which to choose and which to not choose or maybe defer because there isn't enough money to do everything? And we need to also, and importantly, to evaluate the effectiveness of the Community Improvement Plan in terms of vitalization. Is it really doing what we want in terms of vitalization for the downtown? So that's on the agenda for the coalition to be considering soon. Town tourism assets. A survey of the town tourism assets had been contracted to the Economic Planning Group before the coalition was formed. And that report study identified downtown sites with potential for tourism development, including sites on the waterfront. Council accepted the report for information purposes in August of 2015, and the results are now going to be incorporated into consideration of the waterfront study, which will be led by the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture, and which will consider the needs of all waterfront users, not just those that have been identified in this tourism asset study. And again, two companies actually, had been contracted in 2014 to prepare a business case for the venture initiative, which was subsequently termed the Civic. These companies were Location Strategies and Blue Crystal Technologies. And they prepared a preliminary review business case for presentation to Council. There was a stakeholder meeting that the members of the coalition attended in February of 2015 that talked about what the venture initiative might involve. And the business case was presented to Council in July of 2015 and approved in principle. Council asked for a business plan, which was presented in March of 2016, again prepared by the same group. The coalition recommended public input, which was held in May 2016, but in May of 2016 and in September, Council decided to defer the decision on the Civic to next year, pending the outcome of the effectiveness of the CIP initiatives, which is why we need to be thinking about whether those CIP initiatives are really addressing vitalization. Another project that we put in place was a downtown marketing partnership. The coalition developed and recommended terms of reference for a new marketing partnership formed to attract business and customers to the downtown, a pretty important component of vitalization. We provided comments on that initial marketing plan in March of 2016. Council approved the plan but requested more information prior to the approval of a marketing budget, and that was in April of 2016. The report was provided, but the program was declined, and further information is to be provided in the next month or so. However, one great success of the marketing partnership has been the Youth Entrepreneur Partnership, which was created in 2014 with 2 downtown businesses chosen each summer. And 3 of these youth entrepreneur projects or partnership businesses are still in operation now. So this is a 50% success rate, which is not bad for an entrepreneur. Signage and property enhancements were another project that the coalition undertook. We assisted early on in the vehicular wayfinding signage, which was completed in 2015. And additional signage budget for parking and pedestrian wayfinding was limited to $20,000 for 2016. Hopefully we'll get a little more next year. But we will assist in developing concepts for parking and pedestrian signage in the near future. In terms of the public property in the downtown area, we assisted in the completion of the Henley Street Arcade refurbishing and mural selection, and that, I think, has been a great success, which was opened in October of 2015. One of the things that the Canadian Urban Institute study identified was the value of having post-secondary presence in a downtown. Fleming has had some presence in Coburg, but is actually losing interest in situating full-time courses in Coburg. I know the mayor has been working hard on trying to find other options. One thing that has occurred, though, that has been quite a success has been the Durham College Architectural Technician Program, where students have developed and presented redesigns for the downtown Coburg heritage buildings. This relationship with Durham is in its third year now. It's been running since 2014. And even though some of the proposals that the students have made have been well beyond the budgets of some of the property owners, I think it's really opened their eyes to some of the possibilities of what can be done in a heritage town. The idea behind the Municipal Business Certification Program, which was also an action plan recommendation, was to help potential new businesses in Coburg be aware of all the factors they should consider before opening, and also be aware of the help that was available from the town. New businesses that completed this process would get some kind of seal of approval or endorsement. The concept for this recommendation was developed by folks in economic development, and it was proposed to potential partners such as the DBIA and the Business Advisory Committee of Northumberland. However, there was no uptake from these partners. So we've parked this program for the moment. We may well go back to it again. I think it has some value, especially when we see that businesses don't necessarily stick downtown, perhaps for reasons that we could help them solve. Nicole and Peter mentioned the Victoria Hall Square project. It's a Canada 150 signature program that was recommended by the coalition. An ad hoc committee was formed in May of 2016. Kevin Ward is the coalition representative on that committee. Public meeting has been held in 2016 and with an intent to complete the project for the Canada 150 celebration in August of 2017. The work of establishing a municipal culture plan, which I think is also very important for vitalization downtown, will begin in 2017 under the leadership of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture, and I'm hoping that the coalition members will be involved in that. There were several noteworthy projects also undertaken. Oops. There we go. By our partners. In 2015, the DBIA spearheaded a Win This Feel Good Space competition together with other partners, including the Business Advisory Center, the Futures Development Corporation, and the town. Skies Clothing was announced as the winner in June of 2015. Tasty Tuesdays was another DBIA project which ran through the summers of 2014 and 15. And Prosper in Northumberland was a county-funded initiative that engaged the Northumberland Central Chamber of Commerce, one of our members, and resulted in the Buy Local campaign, which you've seen the signs around town. So the previous part of this presentation has addressed the progress on projects derived from the vitalization action plan. Now I want to turn to that second category of measures, the measures of downtown vitality. You recall that there were 5 principles for a successful downtown from that Canadian Urban Institute study. Here are some example indicators of measures for these principles taken from other downtown revitalizations. So, visibility. Visibility is defined in terms of whether the downtown has an integral and central role in the life of the wider city or town, and that's the first item, first principle on that list. So to measure this, we could think about what proportion of the jobs in the urban center are in the downtown, or what proportion of the tax revenue comes from the downtown. Visionary asks whether the downtown benefits from strong, bold leaders who collaborate and achieve and sustain a shared vision. This suggests that there should be a vision shared by all the stakeholders, and that also it's helpful if an approved downtown master plan exists. So those are, again, measures of that principle that we could think about using in Coburg. Prosperity pertains to a robust and innovative economy in the downtown. Could be measured by low vacancy rates in commercial spaces, the revenue of commercial taxes, business diversity, whether the businesses are providing the services that the members of the community need. There's a number of things that we could consider there. Livability speaks to the vibrancy and connectedness of the downtown that might be measured in terms of the number of dwellings, the pedestrian traffic, the number of cultural facilities. And strategy speaks to the number of projects that have municipal investment, for example, and whether the town is investing strategically in the future of the downtown. So are we getting evidence of town interest in the downtown? Are there tax incentives that could be put in place there? So those are some examples of the measures that have been used against those principles in other urban centers in Canada. What about Coburg now? Here's some examples, and we're still probably at the stage of putting forward proposed measures and collecting the data of some visionary and strategy measures that we could apply to Coburg. So the first one on the list is there a vision statement shared by all stakeholders? Well, yes, there is, because we saw it in the action plan. That was in 2013. We've got the establishment of the Downtown Coalition in 2015. We've got an approved master plan in 2016. We've also got some funding allocated for downtown enhancements, and I just got these numbers from Economic Development today. Since the beginning of Vitalization, the town has spent about $193,000 in vitalization efforts in total. However, grant funding from the Ontario government has covered about some of those costs. So the actual spending is actually only $133,000. Grants totaled $60,000. Heritage incentives have played a role in this town for a number of years. In 2014, those totaled $35,000, dropped in 2015 to $9,000. Now the question becomes one of, do you want to see these numbers be going up, going down, staying the same? You know, how do we now interpret these numbers? I'm just giving you the numbers at this point. We also will be able to have a look at the CIP incentives that were paid in 2016, and of course that program only went in place in this year. So we know that it's at least $50,000. Vacancy tax rates have been a big bone of contention among many people in town. These are tax rebates that are given when space is vacant for a period of time. They were $46,000 in 2014 and $55,000 in 2015. And again, I don't have the 2016 numbers because we're not there yet. What about prosperity measures? Does the town have a robust and innovative economy? Let's start with the number of businesses in the downtown. So in 2013 to 2016, and these numbers, by the way, are taken in August of the year, not at the end of the year, because that's when the business directory is created. You can see that those numbers are pretty much around 250. That's the number of businesses in that downtown area. Remember that it encompasses a bigger area than just Division and King Streets. The number of business openings went up in 2015 a little bit, dropped in 2016, but the number of business closings was about comparable in 2014, higher than the number of openings in 2015, and then about roughly the same in 2016. I think it's important that we also recognize that when people see the downtown, they often just look at King Street as the exemplar of what's going on. So we see that the number of businesses that closed on King Street in 2014 was 15, more than half of the business closing. It was 26 in 2015 and only 8 in 2016, again back from August of 2016. Maybe we're going in the right direction here. Commercial construction was something that was of interest to some of the councillors. The permits have gone up quite a lot in the period from 2014 to 15. These actually represent two specific constructions, one at 107 King Street West and the other one at 68 King Street West. Those account for, in 2015, about $600,000 worth of construction. Going back up now to that vacancy rate in commercial units, that's a bit of an interesting measure. How do we get a handle on that? There are about 160 properties in the downtown overall, not just on King Street, that are designated as commercial in the tax roll. Of these, 18 are currently for lease, and of those, 10 are on the main street. So that's one way of just getting a general idea of vacancy rate. But I know that Glenn McGlashan has got something that he's working on that is going to give us a better measure of that, so we can look forward to seeing an improved measure of that in the future. And finally, livability. Is the downtown vibrant, livable, and connected? How many residential properties do we have in the downtown? In 2015, they were 571. Of those, 378 were condo properties. Residential construction permits went up quite a lot between 2014 and 15. 111 Hibernia being the largest component of that, actually. Residential property tax was $2,388,000. The number of residents and the median age of residents were numbers that I got from Stats Canada. We actually made a special request to Stats Canada that they should do their data analysis just for the study area that we have, so the area that I identified. We could go back to them and get additional data for that, but they were able to tell me that 1,555 people live in that study area, and I'm looking forward to the data from the 2016 census to find out, whether that's changed. The median age of the residents downtown is 61. Just for your information, it's about 10 years higher than the rest of Coburg. And one thing that we're working on having soon is the ability to do pedestrian counts at King and Division Streets. We're looking at getting actually a pedestrian counter that will be able to measure that on a continuous basis, and so we'll get some pretty good data on pedestrian activity in the downtown. So these measures that I've given you for Coburg were some that were suggested by a poll of councillors and the coalition. There are many, many others that we could take. We need more work here, I think. We would certainly welcome suggestions from council on other measures that they think are relevant for vitalization. We have to remember that they have to be measures that we can get data for, and ideally accurate, reliable, sensitive data that we can repeat from year to year to see how we're going. What are some issues that we've had in vitalization progress? We need a better communication of the progress that we've had. The newsletter started off a few years ago and kind of got lost in the shuffle. I've gone back and tried to revitalize it, and the email list that's associated with that will now be getting more information. And I think it's really important to start thinking about how we can address buildings or storefronts that are consistently vacant. There are a few examples of those in Coburg. The one at King and Division is the one that jumps out, of course. It's been vacant for years. It's been vacant for as long as I've lived here. What's going on there? Can we not get something going there? And there are a few other examples of vacancies that would be good to bear down on and just see what we can do to get them filled up. Future steps, and this is the final slide. We need to be monitoring the community improvement plan. If it's unsuccessful in accelerating building vitalization, we perhaps will revisit the civic proposal or consider the purchase of a downtown building for redevelopment. That was one of the action plan recommendations. We could go back to that and propose that if we thought it was a good idea. We need to press forward with business and customer attraction through marketing. We need to complete the signage plan and implementation if we can. Revisit the action plan objectives to pick up any missing items that maybe have fallen through the cracks or are not being attended to. Perhaps do further implementation of the downtown master plan recommendations, engage with the culture master plan process, and implement additional measures and data collection, in particular for the CIP and for the pedestrian counts. And that's all I would like to say to Your Worship and members of council. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Well, thank you very much, Carol, for that very detailed and informative update on what's happening with the Downtown Coalition Advisory Committee. Much appreciated. And being part of that committee, I certainly appreciate the amount of work you put into it, both as chair and as the person who really has been responsible for developing a lot of the metrics. So I really appreciate that. But I'm going to open it up to members of council who may have some further questions on the presentation. Councillor Rowden first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks very much for the presentation, Carol. This summer, I was downtown and I met some people, tourists that were doing a lot of tours of small town Ontario, different spots they'd stop for a day or two, and what their main problem was when they got off the train, they didn't have any maps or any indication of historical sites or whatever. I wonder if there's any way we can deal with the railway via station and stuff like that to make sure they get to know what people are looking for when they get off the train.
I think that's a really good point. And of course, the train is a very easy way for people to come into town from Toronto. I use it going the other way. And that's really important. I think there's some historical information now available at that station, but having maybe a little tourist kiosk there would be an excellent idea. I'll bring that up to the coalition.
Okay. Other Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Worship. Wow. That was an amazing report. It's such a comprehensive plan, and you've pulled it all together. And as the Mayor has indicated, a tremendous amount of hard work with your measurable outcomes and getting the data, which is really very, very important, because in order to believe in this action plan, we need to see concrete numbers that give us a sense it's going forward. And thinking that it's only been, 2 years that you've been together? Right, since we started counting, not even that. Yeah. I think you've made tremendous progress. And when I'm looking at your list here, right this year, Victoria Square Municipal Culture Plan, they're all happening, and you'll have data for that for next year, which will help. I wanted to give you a sense of the windows. Every time I travel, I make a point of going in similar-sized communities. And not this summer, but the summer before, I was able to do Huntsville, Bracebridge, and all that. And it's very interesting. I look at that. What are they doing about their empty windows? And it was in Huntsville, where they had a unified, I wouldn't call it a poster, but storefront display in partnership with the DBIA and the town and the chamber on opportunities for downtown. I know this has been tackled before. But it's never had that true partnership. So I'm hoping that can be explored. In fact, I can hand over a report that was prepared on exactly how you would carry out such an initiative. The other aspect that I'd like to add to this is as successful as the partnerships of the stakeholders. And later on in tonight's meeting, we're announcing the new appointees to the Coburg DBI board, and I really want, and I know the Deputy Mayor and I will encourage this partnership, because that is what will carry this forward. And there's a lot of good things coming forward and some training that we received, and I just am so pleased to see the Canadian Urban Institute model presented there. But I also think there's some training that needs to happen in the community, that those are the things we measure. Everybody's got an opinion on downtown Coburg and what makes it successful, but honestly, it's consistent hard work by a dedicated group of volunteers that will make this happen, and making the case to the stakeholders to put their money on the table. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're quite welcome. And I really agree with you. The partnerships and the collaboration are essential. The individuals can't do it themselves. We've got to pull together, and then you can leverage and have something that's greater than the sum of the parts. So, absolutely.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you for a very thorough report. I just have one question regarding the vacancy tax rebates. I was making some notes here, and you were going through the numbers, and I kind of got a little mixed up here. And I think you said 160 properties in the downtown.
160 properties that are categorized in the tax roll as CTN. So my understanding is that those are commercial
properties. Do you know
properties.
how many of them are actually in this amount of 55,000 in 2015? How many properties are actually getting a tax rebate?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's not very many.
Okay.
You know, maybe
well,
one,
that's good to know then, that it's not a huge number.
It's not, no.
Okay, thank you.
And as a proportion of the tax revenue, it's quite small.
Great, thank you very much.
Not that we shouldn't think about maybe improving that situation, as the mayor.
And that is something that, you know, I have been working on with the Ministry of Finance about the tax rebate, because the tax rebate is for commercialists 30% of their tax is refunded if they have a vacancy claim, and so we're not the only municipality that has some concerns about that, and you know we'd like to see a time limit be put on that vacancy rebate, which would then encourage property owners to fix up their properties and make them more attractive to businesses. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Through your worship to Councillor Darling, City, again, that's really looking at this seriously. According to the Mayor, City of Ottawa, they're near contemplating a motion to AMO on that regard if the province doesn't move. So if you want to do further reading, City of Ottawa would be my place of choice.
Okay, other questions of Carol? Well, thank you very much, Carol. It's much appreciated coming in and giving not just us an update, but all the viewers at home as well. Thank you.
Yep.
Your Worship, at this time we have reports, the first being General Government Services. We have the Committee of the Whole meeting notes and the 2017 Budget Public Submission meeting notes.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that Council receive the notes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on October 24, 2016. The notes of the 2017 Budget Public Submission meeting held on October 12, 2016 be received for information purposes.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Rowden. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Public Works Services, we have a letter from H. Williams, the Water Inspector for the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, regarding the Coburg Drinking Water System 2016-2017 Compliance Inspection Report.
Okay. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and the action recommended that Coburg Drinking Water System Compliance Inspection be received for information purposes, and you'll see in the report there that we just got an email from Derek Paul today in regards to the fact that there was only one thing that wasn't reported that was neglected last year, so instead of getting 100%, we got 98.8%, which is still pretty good for a water inspection report. I would think.
And it was just, I do believe it was just not that the test wasn't conducted, the test wasn't recorded. And that's, you know, it's unfortunate. And I know that the president of Lakefront Utilities has addressed that with staff already. Yep. That's not acceptable. Is there a seconder? Councillor McCarthy. Discussion. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it's more just a comment that when we take the standard of care course as elected representatives, and we are liable as council members for the water quality and any issues that stem from it. I was amazed as I was going through each page and complied and excellent. And then there was this one little bit about some, well, as it turns out, recording levels of lead. And then I was quite impressed that there seemed to be so many checks and balances in the inspections, and the staggering number of measurements and reports and validity and compliance that are in this. In some respects, as a counselor, I have to completely trust staff, and I do, and yet here it is. This is exactly the document that elected municipal decision makers need to read and need to understand. I agree 98% is not bad at all. It's an excellent report, and yet it's so interesting in terms of the full scope of what an inspection involves and what takes place for water treatment. It's impressive and very, in my opinion, we truly can have confidence in our water quality. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? That's carried.
Your Worship, under Community Services, we have a letter of resignation from Accessible Advisory Committee member.
Okay, Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you. And I will, the action recommended is that Council accept the letter of resignation from Carol Ann Caswell, Accessibility Advisory Committee member, with regret. I'd just like to say Carol Ann was a passionate member of this committee, would keep us all abreast of what was going on with transit in town and any other issues she was interested in. She will be missed, but we thank her for her commitment, and well, it does open up an opportunity for a new member, but we will miss Carol Ann. Thank you.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Burkett. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, under Planning and Development Services, we have a request for approval of a Municipal Council Support Resolution, Solar Power Network, Inc., regard at 456 Wilmont Street in Coburg.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that Council receive the report for information purposes and authorize the municipal clerk to execute a site-specific municipal council resolution confirmation, MCRC, form as required by the Ontario Power Authority, OPA, FIT 5.0 program for the proposed rooftop solar project, 56 Wilmont Street, Coburg.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Sherwin. This is pretty standard. We've been through this a number of times in the town of Coburg. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a second request for approval of a Municipal Council Support Resolution and Municipal Council Resolution confirmation for a rooftop solar fit project, Solera Viridian Connections, Lakefront Utilities, Inc., at 25 Ewart Street in Coburg.
Okay, Councillor Burkett again.
The action recommended is that Council receive the report for information purposes and authorize the municipal clerk to execute a site-specific municipal council resolution confirmation, MCRC, form as required by the Ontario Power Authority, OPA, FIT 5.0 program for proposed rooftop solar project, 25 Ewart Street, Coburg.
Seconder. And Councillor Rowden. Okay. And this particular project is the Lakefront Utilities storage garage up on Ewart Street. Actually, Mark Tierney from Viridian is in the audience tonight if there's any questions, but these things have been pretty standard. As I said, the approval of the FIT programs is something we've all supported strongly. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have a memo from the Secretary of the Coburg Planning and Sustainability Advisory Committee regarding the Community Improvement Project Program.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that Council receive the recommendation for information purposes and that the information be included in a report to be presented to Council at December meeting.
Okay, seconder. Councillor McCarthy. Discussion. So the suggestion they put forward was going to be included in the CAO's report regardless. We did say that we want to follow up the CIP. So so far it's been what we all consider to be very successful, and hopefully it will continue to be so. Further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have motions, the first being General Government Services.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a delegation request from the Rotary Club, now therefore be it resolved that Council proclaim November 25 or 25th, 2016 as Rotary Foundation Day in the town of Coburg to recognize the 100th anniversary of the foundation of the Rotary Foundation, established to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty.
Moved and seconded, and last week at the Committee of the Whole we did have a presentation from several members of Rotary, and while we all are fully aware of the the initiatives that Rotary support in the town of Coburg, it was very informative to hear about all their global initiatives that we don't hear of so often. So Rotary has been a great contributor to society as a whole right across the global market. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion from Parks and Recreation Services.
Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In this regard, the motion was from the Committee of the Whole regarding the interim facilities utilization report for the CCC. This afternoon we had a meeting, and there were some questions come up from the engineer in regard to code work and whatnot. So at this time the engineer is doing a little further due diligence. So at this time I'd like to refer it to a future council meeting if that's okay.
Okay, you just want to defer it? Okay. Seconder? Councillor Burkhat. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion under Public Works Services.
Okay.
Yes, Your Worship, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Henderson, whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding purchase of an asset management software. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council authorize initiation of the asset management program in the fall of 2016 with execution of one phase of the project being based on the timing requirements of the provincial regulations, and further that Council authorize the purchase implementation of Ezra Canada Asset Manager CityWorks extension in the amount of $10,300, CityWorks service request API at an annual cost of $7,800 to be added to the existing license required for service request integration. eSolutions website CityWorks services request integration in the amount of $9,750 and further building audits estimated at $45,000 for a total cost of $72,850, which includes building of the asset registry, completion of the building audits, and integration of the town website service request system with CityWorks service request system to be funded from the Holdco dividend reserve. And Your Worship, we had questions on this last week. If there's any further,
I think we've talked about asset management a lot, and so now we're really getting moving forward on it, and we're using the CityWorks, which is the same as the county is using. So I think we've got something very, very reliable. Any discussion on asset management? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion from Community Services.
Okay. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is regarding Victoria Square Phase 4 project. I'll place the recommendation on the floor. There's some slight changes to the wording, which I will note as we go. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the Victoria Square Phase 4 Committee recommendations. Now therefore be it resolved that Council endorse the recommendations of the Victoria Square Phase 4 Ad Hoc Committee and accept the final design provided in the staff report as a basis for final construction drawings and tender package, which includes an information package, and further that Council accept the project timelines as outlined in the staff report, and further that Council appoint the existing Victoria Square Phase 4 committee to act as the Victoria Square Project Steering Group for the next phase of this project, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with preparing and processing this is going to be expression of interest, bracket EOI, and a request for proposal for the public art component of the Victoria Square project in the amount of approximately $10,000 to include a stipend to request for proposal proponents and any costs for professional artist expenses on jury panel, and further that the final award be contingent on budget deliberations and the success of grant applications to be funded from the 2017 pre-engineering account, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with the tendering and execution of engineering and architectural services for preparation of tender documents and plans at an estimated cost of $40,000 to be funded from the 2017 pre-engineering account, and further that the call for construction be contingent upon budget deliberations and success of grant applications, and further that Council authorize that Miriam Mouton, landscape architect, be retained to provide advice and direction as required on an hourly rate basis, and this is where the wording will change because of the amendment from last week. Further, that Council open to the public the selection of a name for the square from the options suggested by the committee reviewed as follows. And the suggestions were Coburg Heritage Square, Coburg Market Square, Victoria Market Square, and Coburg Civic Square, in that order of ranking. Further, that the suggested options for naming of the square be sent out for public consultation through their municipal website.
Okay. Ms. Brace, did you get that slight change? Okay.
And this was seconded by the Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion? We know that this committee is led by Miriam Mouton, has done a lot of work in a short period of time, come up with something that is very, very acceptable to not just the committee, but the general public, because we have had public meetings on it. So I think it's going to be a huge success when it's implemented in 2017. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have motions under Planning and Development Services.
Don't we have
So the first motion.
community services?
Nope.
Addition?
Oh,
What about
DBA? What was that after? Okay, all right. All right, go ahead, Councillor Burkett.
okay. First motion. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sherwin. Whereas capitalized term not defined herein have meetings as subscribed to them to the FIT rules version 5.0, and whereas SPNLP 6 or 17, the applicant purpose to construct an operate a rooftop solar the project on 46 Wilmot Street, Coburg, Ontario, 51101-0797 LT, the lands in the town of Coburg under the province's FIT program. And whereas the applicant has requested that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Coburg indicated by resolution Council's support for the construction on operation of the project of the property. And whereas pursuant to the FIT rules, version 5.0, applicants whose projects receive the formal support of the local municipalities will be awarded priority points, which may result in the applicant being offered a FIT contract prior to the other persons applying FIT contracts. Now therefore it be resolved that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Coburg support the construction and operation of the project on the lands. This resolution's sole purpose is to enable the applicant to receive priority points under the FIT program and may not be used for the purpose of any other form of the municipal approval in relation to the application or project or any other purpose.
Okay, and as we said before, we know that if the municipality supports a FIT program, it does give the applicant more points, which gives them a better chance of getting their FIT proposal approved. Any discussion on this? All in favor? It's carried. Councillor Burkett again.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sherwin. Whereas capitalized terms on defined herein have the meaning ascribed to them in the FIT rules version 5.0, and whereas Viridian Connections Inc., the applicant, proposes to construct and operate a rooftop solar installation, the project, on PIN 51089-0029 the lands in the town of Coburg under the province's FIT program. And whereas the applicant has requested that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Coburg indicate by resolution Council's support for the construction and operation of the project on the property. And whereas pursuant to the FIT rules version 5.0, applicants whose projects receive the formal support of the local municipalities will be awarded priority points, which may result in the applicant being offered a FIT contract prior to other persons applying for FIT contracts. And therefore it be resolved that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Coburg support the construction and operation of the project on the lands. This resolution sole purpose to enable the applicant to receive priority points under the FIT program and may not be used for the purpose of any other of municipal approval in relation to the application or project or for any other purpose.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sherwin, whereas the Council has considered a memo from the Director of Planning and Development at the regular Council meeting. Now therefore be resolved that Council authorize the Municipal Clerk to execute a site-specific Municipal Council Resolution Confirmation MCRC form as required by the Ontario Power Authority's OPA FIT 5.0 program for proposed rooftop solar projects that receive a site-specific municipal council support resolution, and further that Council mandate that as a condition to approving a site-specific municipal council support resolution for rooftop solar projects under the OPA's FIT 5.0 program, each applicant for a rooftop solar project under the OPA's FIT 5.0 program submit detailed design drawings and specifications to the municipality for review prior to the installation of the rooftop solar project in order to ensure that the municipal staff has an opportunity to comment on the project and consider any approvals that may be required in accordance with applicable legislation.
Okay. Again, any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have the reading of the bylaws.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Your Worship and members of Council, we have 3 bylaws for presentation, namely a bylaw to provide an exemption from taxation for veterans organization within the corporation of the town of Coburg, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an agreement with the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services related to funding under the Court Security and Prisoner Transportation CSPT program, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute a funding agreement under the New Building Canada Fund NBCF, Small Communities Fund SCF, for the Hardin Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project. And I move that first reading be given these bylaws.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Sherwin. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, I move that Council go into Committee of the Whole for the second reading of these bylaws.
Seconder. Councilor Burkett. All in favor? Carried.
A bylaw to provide an exemption from taxation for veterans organization within the corporation of Coburg. This is standard procedure and is something that's been done, and we're just updating our bylaw. For members of council and the public, these are generally on 5-year runs, and this is the 5th year where we believe the bylaw needs to be updated.
Okay.
And I move second reading of this bylaw.
Any comments or discussion on the second reading? All in favor? Carried.
A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an agreement with the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services related to funding under Court Security and Prisoner Transportation CSPT program. I move for second reading of this bylaw.
Okay. Any discussion? Anytime we're getting money, we shouldn't. Doesn't take much of a discussion. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Rowden, second reading.
Yeah, your question. A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute a funding agreement under the New Building Canada Fund NBCF, Small Communities Fund SCF, for the Hardin Street Bridge Rehabilitation Program or project. And I give a second reading.
And I believe that was $324,000 we were getting on that one. Yeah, okay.
I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Director's shaking his head. Yes, that's a good news program. That's money again.
Another good news story. All in favor? Carried.
The committee rise.
All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, bylaws to provide an exemption from taxation for veterans organization within the corporation town of Coburg. A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an agreement with the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services related to funding under the Court Security and Prisoner Transportation CSPT program. A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute a funding agreement under the New Building Canada Fund NBCF, Small Communities Fund SCF, for the Hardin Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project. Have received both first and second readings without amendments, and I move third reading of these bylaws and that they finally be passed and ordered signed by the mayor and municipal clerk with the corporate seal affixed.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Darling. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have correspondence, the first being a resolution and staff report from the County of Northumberland regarding comments on the proposed changes to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan under Planning Services.
Okay. Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that Council receive the report and resolution for information purposes.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Darling again. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the next two are under Public Works Services. We have a letter from Linda Laliberti, CIO Treasurer of the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority, dated October 21st, 2016, regarding the 2017 GRCA preliminary budget.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Yes, Your Worship. In action recommended that Council receive the letter during the Town of Coburg 2017 budget deliberations.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Burkett, any discussion on the GRCA budget? Deputy Mayor Henderson?
Through you, Your Worship, to the Director, I didn't get to him earlier because of my number of meetings, and I apologize for that. If you could just find out for me, unless you have the answer right now, Mr. Thrasher, in the funding, it indicates $25,000 towards storm sewer project or costs. And if you could just let me know what that refers to. If you can do it tonight, great. If you can't, in a future council meeting would certainly work out well.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, I do have the answer to that question tonight. The $5,000, first of all, which is listed in that same sentence as a capital, of course, is our annual water course monitoring, which really is in the operational budget. The $25,000 is going to be our fees paid to the GRCA for the special stormwater management pond project, because they're a key partner of ours in the design of that facility, and that's the estimate of what their charges to us will be this year for the work there.
Okay. Any other discussion? Don't take it. Did I get a seconder for that? I think I did. Oh, yeah, Councillor Burkett. Yeah, okay. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a letter from Wally Keeler, a Coburg resident, regarding the Darcy Street Railway crossing, and that was in the addendum.
Okay.
Your Worship, the Council received the letter for information purposes and refer the matter to staff for a report.
Okay. This letter relates to the level crossing at Darcy Street. Seconder, Councillor Sherwin. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have Council Coordinator announcements.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
I just want to ask, are we going to bring the DBIA motion in at some point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just before we adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do have a few items to report, and of course the first one is, it was in the paper today, that Cameco did hold a press release at their plant in Northern Industrial Park last week, and they have announced their partnership with SNC Lavalin and AECON to produce fuel tubes at the facility in Coburg, which will be an additional 20 jobs, which is really good news for the Cameco as well as for Coburg. Cameco is on the next, staying on the Cameco theme. Every 5 years, Cameco has to reapply to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to renew their license for producing fuel, and so that the hearing with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission is taking place next week on Tuesday and Wednesday. I have already made a written submission on supporting their licensing application, and I will be going over there next Wednesday to make an oral presentation in front of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission as well. We also have another company, in Northern Industrial Park, we have several of our tenants that are looking for more space because they are expanding, want more jobs, and they're going to create more jobs. So we've been working with them on that, and it's how we can best accommodate everybody to meet all of their needs. Last week I met with a food company that was in Coburg. Wendy Gibson, our Economic Development Officer, toured them around several sites in Coburg, and they're very much interested in locating, at least what they told me, they're locating somewhere along the 401. They already have an existing food business in Toronto and want to expand. So I was quick to point out that we had all the services they were looking for, plenty of water supply. We had lots of capacity in our water pollution control system, and of course lots of electricity. So they seem to be fairly impressed with what they saw. So hopefully, they're doing more than just kicking tires, and they'll be back to visit us. And I think that's all the activity for now. But I do have a good news report coming from the county. I was at a Transportation and Waste Management Committee meeting at the county this morning, and Mayor Hector McMillan was at the meeting, full of life, kicking mad, and said ready to continue the fight. He looked really good. He said he feels really good, and I was glad to see him back working on behalf of the county. That's the end of my report. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. Mine's very brief. Just this past week, I attended an AMO session entitled What's Next Ontario. I will be sharing that information at General Government first, and then I'll do a summary for the rest of Council to see and how we may wish to proceed with that. So just let you know, I just got through attending. I'm waiting for additional information, and then hopefully I'll have something for you for hopefully our next Committee of the Whole. That's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to remind everyone out there that the Recreation Strategy and Implementation Plan is still open on the town's website for final comments before the consultants finalize the document and present it to Council in December. This Wednesday night, the YMCA Needs Assessment meeting was held for members of the public. There was a roundtable discussion which provided the consultants with additional info that will be incorporated into the report on this first phase of the feasibility study. For the parks, the winterizing mall buildings, they're placing snow fence on the beach to try and keep the sand there. It's an uphill battle, but it seems to help out. There have been some upgrades completed to Legion Fields, and we're prepping all vehicles for winter use. As a board member of the GRCA, I attended the annual half-day seminar on source water protection. This seminar brings to the forefront the actions being taken to protect our drinking water under the Source Protection Act. It was quite good information, and as we've seen by tonight's water report, it is very, very important. Last but not least, just another reminder, I think Mr. Delaney covered everything well in their report about upcoming events, but again, the reminder for the curling and the over 55, the Rbc Cup, all coming up through our CCC. And that's my report.
Thank you. Question, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
No, just if I can add maybe a comment for Councillor Darling. In terms of the curling, we had our very first volunteer Sunday. Please sign up and volunteer for the event. And just a little over 200 signed up. And for that, quickly you get a beautiful looking jacket, a t-shirt, and it costs us $100, but it's well worth it. And the next signing up date, if you're so interested, I believe is November the 20th. I want to make very clear here, you don't have to know anything about curling. You just want to volunteer. And the goal is to achieve 300 volunteers. So I think we have 70 or 80 spots to go. So I just throw that out there for anybody in the community who might wish to be engaged.
Well, thanks for that update. I'm not surprised that they showed up in strong numbers. The curling club are very passionate about their sport. So, and I know quite a few of them. They're all the same. They would volunteer and do whatever they can to support their sport. Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and just a short report tonight. We're getting closer to finalization on Division Street. As you notice, they're getting a few lines painted, and of course alleviate a few lights and confusion over there at the Monroe Street intersection. And hopefully everybody will be happy when it's finished. We figure it should be finished by the end of November. The building number 7, I think our staff is looking forward to probably a move-in date in probably the 1st of December as well. It's coming along very close to being finished, and I think that council had a tour of that building, and I believe they were quite surprised on how big it was and how well it was coming on. So I think it'll serve the purpose very well as long as it get in before snow starts to fly. And the other thing, funding is we're looking forward to James Street construction next year. There's been people asking about it. I believe it's engineering is underway, so we're ready for any funding that we can gather from the province. If you get a chance to talk to our MPP there, Mr. Mayor, I think, and we might just get another round next spring for another construction job that we might need.
I talk to him constantly about how much support, financial support, we need from the province.
Well, that's a good sign. And on top of that, on the curling and the Rbc Cup next year, I don't know whether Councillor Darling announced or not, but I believe the tickets are on sale now. I found out today that you can buy the tickets through the CC Center for the Rbc Cup, but I believe you have to go online for the ones for the curling.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, this was quite an evening for community services when you think of mentioning the Victoria Square and all of the signature events in Canada 150. So there's only a few things I want to elaborate on in light of those presentations that I think the public will find very interesting. But first of all, of note to the community, this Sunday there is a Coburg concert band parade that will start in the morning about, I believe it is 9:30 in the morning, and it's a parade downtown to the Cenotaph and up to St. Peter's Church. And this is done every year, but it's meaningful, and there's a march past the church as part of the parade, so the public can go out. And of course, next Friday is the Remembrance Day Parade. The parade starts at the Legion at 10 o'clock and walks towards the Cenotaph, where there is always a really remarkable turnout by the community, no matter what the weather is for this event. It's very, very moving. And just because our next council meeting is only one day after this event, I'm saying it's now the Santa Claus Parade. It is Sunday, November 20th. It starts at 2 p.m. and it's the usual route. It starts at Darcy and goes down to the library. With respect to the Canada 150 presentation, I will be providing more information, and there will be continuous updates, but any organization, I really want to reiterate that, or even not an organization, it could be a business, it could be a community group or a neighborhood. If you're planning a Canada 150 themed celebration, you can upload it to the calendar. Now, you do have to go through the town, and I just want to point out tonight that on the Town of Coburg website, on the home page, one of the tabs says Coburg 2017, and that is where you can follow up with the information that to advertise or let the public know. These are for events that are, if there's a charge, you have to specify it, but in many cases it's just simply something's happening that the public is invited to. Well, we do need volunteers for all of these events. And in fact, the signature events that were mentioned tonight that will be happening at the CCC, Deputy Mayor Henderson alluded to 300 volunteers. That's the magic number, and we're hoping that group will pop up for each of the events. And as an incentive towards that, with respect to the Ontario 55-plus games, there's a special deal for volunteers, and this is really something. If you're willing to be a volunteer at the games, and this could be at the event sites, it could be opening ceremonies, there's many, many jobs, and each of the sports has their own volunteer needs, as well as the organizing committee. If you want to sign up to commit to help out for those 3 days, and it's February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. St. John's Ambulance Northumberland is offering CPR and first aid classes for $25. And for some people that need a refresher, that's $100. And if you need the 2-day requalification, that's $150 value. So you can get in touch with the event assistant at the CCC, Katie Litt, and her number is 905-372-7371, extension 8408. Sorry, 8408. The DBIA will be speaking. There's going to be a motion in that regard. Library Board, there's a Macquarie series. They partner with the Alzheimer's Society, and this Thursday afternoon, it is the presentation in the afternoon, and it's called the Ambiguous Loss, and it's about caregivers and the journey they go through when a loved one has dementia. It's very, very good information, and the public's welcome to that. But with respect to the 150 plans of the library, there's something you can do right now. If you like coloring, and adults color now, you can go to the library and ask for a page, and they need 150 colored pages. You could make a red and white theme or whatever, but they'd like to display those are pieces of, well, color by numbers, let's say, artwork in January. The Art Gallery, a new exhibition is opening this Thursday, and this is really something that will have an impact in the community, and it's called Northumberland Went to War. And there's a partnership with Port Hope Archives, photography clubs, and I really think that the public will find it fascinating to come to the gallery for the opening night, and then it's open until December 4th. For this exhibition, which looks at the information and the people in our community. It really tells the stories in our community. The opening night is this Thursday from 7 to 9. But there's also an extra programming that I want to share that's of personal note. The Art Gallery likes to provide extra programming with its exhibitions, and with this one, they're providing the songs and poems of the First World War, and it's a partnership with the Coburg Poetry Workshop, and it's at 2 p.m. on November 9th, and then it's repeated again at 7 p.m., but on the 2 p.m. it's at the Art Gallery. And yours truly is going to be singing with some community members. This was put together by Eric Winter, our Coburg Poet Laureate, and it's a wonderful, very, very moving production. So, and it's free. It's for a donation with Doctors Without Borders. The Senior Center had hosted the Active Living Fair on Friday, October 21st, and from that at that event was the Northumberland County, and they are asking for people to help out with a survey, hoping I can find it. Here it is. They need information, volunteers needed between November 14th and November 19th. They want help with understanding homelessness in Northumberland. And it's a short housing survey with individuals and families experience or at risk of homelessness. And volunteers are needed to conduct the surveys, enter data, and to help host community events. And they need sign-ups by November 7th. And you could go to the Facebook page for Northumberland County Community and Social Services. And that's probably the more efficient way to do it. But the council's had the opportunity to attend workshops on understanding poverty and homelessness. And there are many families that are one paycheck away from homelessness. And so it's not just people that we think of on the street that are homeless. There's many people that are at risk. So that's a really worthwhile endeavor. The activity fair was well attended, as it always is, and it's going to be continuing. And finally, the Coburg Waterfront Festival. We had our first meeting for next year. So we won't talk about that now. There's just too many wonderful things happening. But the final thing is the farmers market is open for business until December. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Sherwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few items. As summer is ending and the last quarter of the year is coming around, some of the stats of a very busy fire department over the year. Up until this point now, they've attended 883 incidents. They've had 187 training sessions and 287 fire prevention activities. And I'd like to pass on a story how efficient and quick reacting our fire department is. I received a call at work this morning regarding from an older gentleman that he wasn't feeling well, and I informed him to phone the fire department and get them over there. They were there within the matter of minutes. They helped him work through his issues. Some of his carbon monoxide testers were out of date, and they helped him replace them. He phoned me back later and was very grateful, and he passed on kudos to the fire department. And I think this is one thing the town must realize, that our fire department's always there for them. If they need or have any questions regarding, and they still don't understand the carbon monoxide laws that we are now into, please phone the fire department. They'll work through it with you and help you out. In the new year, you will see some rebranding of the Shelter of Hope. I'll have some more details as we get closer to that. Also, too, as we know, the holiday season is approaching quite quickly, quicker than we want sometimes. The police will be out in their ride programs again. And also, too, they're working again in partnership with the VI, and the Red Nose program is being established again this year for Northumberland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burkett.
Just got a couple of things. One, I was driving by and I noticed that I think there's about 9 or 10 houses up in that new Amherst south of Linear Park now. They're going pretty strong in there. If you haven't checked out the HTMI building yet, it's going up quite quick. They got some interior walls. Notice they got the sidewalks kind of laid out there, and they've poured some of that stuff as well on their property. So that's coming along quite well, and they got some nice brickwork done outside. Another thing for the members of the public, the Government of Ontario is doing a review in regards to the OMB, how it operates and its role within the province. So if anyone in the public would like to give their comments or feedback, there's questions online. They can go to the website, and they're looking to get submissions before or by December 19th this year. And if you want to go to www.mah.gov.on.ca, and you can find the information on that. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. I do have one final comment I forgot to mention. On Friday, the Legion came down to the office and pinned the first copy of this season on MPP Lou Rinaldi and myself. They also wanted me to invite all members of council to the Remembrance Day Parade on November the 11th. So they'd like you to be down at the Legion at 10 o'clock. They will form up the parade at 10:15, and we will march to the cenotaph as we normally do. So hopefully all members of council will be able to make that. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Worship. And I forgot to mention something as well that would be of interest to Council and the public. Tomorrow morning in Council Chambers of Northumberland County is a forum on the age-friendly project. That's a partnership with Habitat for Humanity, Community Training and Development Center, and Northumberland County. And they're going to present the results and analysis of the public consultation this past year, because they are eventually coming to Northumberland County Council with recommendations. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. Just to build on your comment, Remembrance Day, I went over the weekend as well and purchased my ticket for dinner, so they have duly invited council and the guests, if you so wish, to have dinner at the Legion that same night. So they just want me to remind you that the tickets are there if you're available.
Thank you.
Your Worship, at this time we have closed session action item, and Councillor McCarthy has two motions to present.
Okay, Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you. I'll place the motion on the floor. First motion, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Henderson. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a recommendation regarding a Coburg Downtown Improvement Area Board member appointment, and whereas municipalities have the authority under the Municipal Act SO 2001 Chapter 25 as amended to appoint individuals to local boards, and whereas Council wishes to provide for the orderly transition of appointed members to the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board, now therefore be it resolved that Council hereby remove Andrew Stewart, effective immediately, as a Council-appointed member of the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board and appoint members from those individuals selected at the October 25th, 2016 election of members recommended for Council appointment to the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
The second motion reads, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor John Henderson. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered appointments to the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board for those individuals selected at the October 25th, 2016 Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area election, now therefore be it resolved that Council appoint the following elected Coburg Downtown Improvement Area representatives to the Coburg DBI Board of Management for the term ending November 30th, 2018. And in order alphabetically, Adam Bureau, Julie Dreyer, Reno Ferrari, Mohammed Kundan, Teresa Rickerby, and Lou Trezalo.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Darling.